There's some. Hello, good morning and welcome to Coffee, Buses and Politics. It's just Stephen and I for the time being, but I think the others will be joining us in a bit.
Martin's in America, isn't he? Isn't he on his massive road trip? Is he coming? Yeah.
Yeah.
He makes me jealous every day. He was in New Orleans last time I saw, but he's having some grand trip across America as far as I can see.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, lucky him.
He might still be up, but if he does, he'll be full of bourbon or whatever you drink there, and maybe not as coherent as normal.
Yeah. Eating beignets. How's it going?
Great, thank you. Just at the end of budget season, which is good. You know, it's always a intense time for being a councillor. Also quite an argumentative time because nobody ever agrees on budgets and they're always difficult to put through. But we've got the budget through at county council and this week on district council, and I guess start looking forward to elections now. Basically, we had a long budget meeting at HDC on Wednesday or Thursday. Wednesday, I think it was. It was Wednesday. It wasn't last night. Which was and a bit like the budget at county council. So in order to be an administration, you have to put loads of work in. You know, both the administration, but mainly the officers, to put together a coherent budget, basically for the next 5 years, even though neither council will be around in 5 years. Which has to be signed off by the Section 151 officer, who is the officer who's in charge of finance, who is a member of the council's officers, but has to take an independent view, because if he or she in this case doesn't sign that off, then you can still get it through, but it calls the whole question in the council into question. So we put together a budget. I think because we've implemented the green bin charges, we're in a fairly good position, but things like the government's national insurance contributions change. It makes all time difficult for all councils. So we put together a budget which we thought we were relatively proud of. And normally what would happen is, in most cases, in most years, the opposition would put together their own budget, take that through the scrutiny process, and then we would debate the budgets on the night. But what happened this time is we put our budget, took it through scrutiny, and heard nothing from the Conservatives until late on the afternoon of the meeting, when we got an email through with a set of, I think, 7 amendments or something, saying how they were going to take some money out of the budget and spend it on these things as well. And Ross Martin, when he made a speech, says these are not cuts, but clearly they're cuts, including and so the narrative was really weird, because what you can't do. I'm very numerate. I'm an engineer, but I'm not great at reading accounts. For me to sit basically, it's the afternoon meeting. I'm at work all for the whole afternoon, get home, have an hour-long council meeting, and eat some food and drive to the council meeting. I didn't even have a chance to even look at their budget proposals, and some of them were things. So they were their budget proposals were things like make all the parking free in market towns for the first hour. And cut, and that we've got some increases to the pitch rates for markets, and cut those down to make the market towns more viable. Now, obviously, I'm in favour of making the market towns more viable, but what I can't do is vote for something which I've just seen on the night. The car parking one alone was going to cost us £24 million over 5 years. I cannot make a decision, can I? Nobody can make a decision. I hadn't even seen a printed out copy, and they printed out some copies for the meeting that hadn't even handed them out. It's like that's impossible to do. And so and of course they were never trying to get their budget amendments through. All they were trying to do, same as county council, was to get some fodder for leaflets, propaganda for leaflets, to say, oh, Councillor Ferguson voted against cutting car parking in market towns, but it would have been impossible, and absolutely impossible and completely frivolous for me to vote for that on the night, and so I didn't, and it got beaten. I mean, I actually abstained, because I think, to be fair to them, I'm not I don't think I should ever vote on anything that I haven't really had a chance to consider properly. I take a lot of time to try and read my papers for meetings, and to have a bit of paper thrust at me during the speech I was making actually made it really difficult. And so that's what I hate about councils at the moment. Is it's all party political. It's all about posturing. Yeah, these aren't serious suggestions. If they were serious suggestions, and they're taking a month to get them through the scrutiny process, and we had a chance to consider them and debate them, absolutely, I would have considered those. Yeah, because as usual, none of them are bad suggestions. They're on paper, they're great suggestions, but you can't afford to do all these things and do everything you want to do. And so it's a question of resource allocations, and I just find the whole thing utterly depressing. That's what I the truth of
it. We've been joined by Martin. Martin is using this new AI filter and looks surprisingly like Alex Bulat. Morning, Alex.
Hello, good morning.
So, see, it's so good. Martin now even responds to Alex. Yeah, we were just talking about the budget process at HTC.
Yeah, I was hearing a bit, Stephen, were there those last minute amendments? Because I have to say, I know this is the process. You can submit what was like a day in advance, it's the same as the county council.
Yeah.
If you don't have a full budget amendment, if you have those smaller amendments.
But they weren't even a day in advance. So they had to get signed off by the Section 151 officer, yeah. But they weren't even, they were literally, it was, I think the email was received after 1 o'clock on the day of the meeting, yeah. And literally, I'm at work with my head down, I'm not looking at my council's emails. I just don't do that anymore. And so, I mean, I'd heard on the WhatsApp group that there had been amendments, but I hadn't had a chance to read them or consider them properly. So yeah, so it wasn't even, if it had been the night before, I would have done my best to read them. Yeah, but I think as a principle, in any council meeting, back from when I was town councillor, we would generally refuse to debate things that were handed out at meetings because it's just not fair on anybody, is it? It isn't.
No, I agree. Maybe something about the process as well, because obviously with especially the evening meetings in many district councils, you can get them like on the day. And obviously if you're at work and you have the meeting at 7 o'clock, then you don't really have time to engage with the papers, do you? But yeah, even at the county council, because it's not like a full budget amendment. Like I remember obviously at the council on Tuesday, and you get to see I think it was 11 amendments around the afternoon of the day before, which happened to be one of my London days. So yes, it's also, I did read them for county council, but it's basically you being at 11 p.m. at night, the night before the 10 a.m. meeting, actually trying to make sense of the 11 things, and reading them. So I mean, to me, a lot of the processes, including this, it just show how council meetings and processes are set up for what used to be the typical councillor who focuses exclusively on council business, is retired and has time to read last minute amendments. So yeah, I totally relate to you as someone who's working as well, and often when something is sent last minute and you're in the middle of work and you can't open your council email and you think how I'm supposed to be engaging with this properly if I didn't have enough time to read it. So it is an issue, I think, across local government in terms of how the meetings are set up. But it's probably another topic for discussion.
I think there should. I mean, if you're, I don't know. I mean, I think there's an argument to say that sometimes for and this comes down perhaps to chair's discretion, which can be tricky, but small amendments. Okay, you can deal with those, but for things where if so is it 4.8 million a year on coming in on parking?
I think it's more than that, but yeah, I'm trying to find the pay. I can't even find
it. 24 million over 5 years, I think, comes to 4.8 million.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that a year. Yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
That's not something like that. You that large. I don't think you can reasonably consider at such short notice. I mean, I think so that amount of money is more than for instance, the entire Huntingdon Town Council budget.
Yes.
And if a budget was presented at that short notice, I think people there needs to be some look at the procedure there, where if you're doing something that large, you you can't give that short notice, because it doesn't. I mean, going back to you saying earlier on about you abstained, I actually think I'd have voted against, but made the point of saying I'm voting against because this isn't, I can't positively vote for it because I just haven't had time to. I think I dislike abstaining.
I think it's the only time I've ever done it. It probably wasn't a very popular decision in the administration, because I think technically by the joint administration agreement we're whipped into voting for the budget. If that had gone through, I'd probably have been in trouble. But it was also one of those recorded vote situations where I'd like to have said I'm voting. I did say in a very grumpy speech when I threw my toys out the pram that I couldn't vote for this because of all those reasons, and I thought it was ridiculous, But when it came down to it, I abstained to give. I mean, because making a decision on some of those things, some of them there were definitely some good ideas, and and some of the things they were cutting, it's worth. I would like the opportunity to discuss all of those things, but we didn't have the opportunity. And the other thing is some of the in Ross's speech, like he was talking about, we don't need to have a licensing officer because we're up to date with all our food safety checks, but it's a different type of licensing. It was about licensed premises. And there's like 800 in the district. Violent crime is a consequence of excess drinking, and we have a statutory duty to review those things, and we don't do it properly at the moment. So we need extra resources, and just like crossing that out with a pen stroke, something we've considered really quite carefully over a long time, and saying we're going to do this instead without any consideration doesn't make any sense. So I probably should have voted against it. You're right, but I didn't.
I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about like the themes, because I mean I haven't followed your budget meeting in HDC, but it doesn't surprise me like free parking comes up, because it does come up very heavily in Paul Bristow's campaign for mayor, saying, well, proposing free parking in Peterborough Centre, and in his words, looking into how this might work in Cambridge. And I think this is kind of the danger of being so close to elections, because you have so many proposals that A, don't only cost a lot of money, but B, are not really thought through. So for example, like me, as someone who hasn't looked into the numbers or the traffic data or like how much it would cost, just saying, well, I'm going to consider free parking in Cambridge City, the first thing as someone who is, both taking the bus, walking or driving into Cambridge is, well, the streets are already kind of gridlocked at many hours. Like it will be impossible to move if like suddenly it will be like completely free to park in the town center. But like I might not know like all the data behind it. And there's the problem like with getting like 2 months to the election. Lots of those ideas come up which are not presented in, I guess, an evidenced way. In the similar way as like all the amendments that we had with the that you're commenting on as well, Stephen, like with taking money from the pothole fund to fund specific division projects. You asked about the costing of a particular one. So like on the face of it, lots of those ideas are like, why not have, the camera on this on this speed camera on this road, or why not like have some improvements in this division? But at the end of the day, it's presented as, take money from there and put it in here because it's more convenient to spend it in here, without having that kind of more evidence informed approach, which is really difficult to kind of make a decision on those.
So at the county council one, there was a proposal to install a speed camera in Wisbeach, and I looked into that quite carefully because I had the amendments the day before or a couple of days before, and so I did as much research. And you look into it, that stretch of road, I worked out that 2 young men had been killed over the last 15 years. Now, I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but I did deliberately mention their names in the debate because I think, we should be talking about people and not statistics. But 2 people had lost their lives there. It's an accident hotspot. Absolutely, that was the sort of place I would completely support spending money. But you look at the money they're asking, it was an order of magnitude too much. And the argument back was like, oh, well, you don't have to spend that money. You just have to, we can always work out the details later. But when that's money we're taking out of our budget that won't be spent on other things, and it just doesn't make any sense. And it's just, I just find the whole thing, I think I wrote on Twitter that it's just futile theatre is all it is. It's just, nobody watches. I think there was 10 people watching or 11 people for most of the debate, But I'm sure that it will be on leaflets across the county, and none of those leaflets will be realistic because, happily discuss all of those things, but not when I haven't had time to prepare. And so, Although every Friday morning we talk about things when I haven't any time to prepare or haven't done any preparation, so kind of used to it.
Yeah, I mean, this goes on to what something sort of slightly related, which is the sort of death of local media, because you things like that ideally would be covered by local media, but there sort of isn't any.
Well, there's John Elworthy, isn't there? Really?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan and a big supporter of the Huns Post. I always have been. Yeah, and early on in my political career, that's the way I came to prominence, was by getting on social media, obviously, but also on the Huns Post by campaigning on some things, and they pick things up. But it's just a shadow of its former self. It's been through a couple of changes. Yeah, they don't have the quality. They've had some good journalists there as well, but generally they move on to other and different things, the good ones. And so they have a constant stream of young journalists, not many resources in trying to cover, Huntingdonshire doesn't feel like a big patch, but quite often you talk to the journalists, they're also working for the Ely Chronicle and things. And so the person that still does a decent job of reporting, local politics as much as he can is John Elworthy. And then you've got people like Phil Rogers on Twitter and Anthony Carpin who also pick on things, but it's just a really difficult job. And they're having a credible and effective free press is an important part of democracy, as is having a decent opposition as well. And the other thing to say is that the opposition benches, there were never enough of them to pass their budget. Same at county council. We had another. Should we talk about that as well? We had another departure at county council this week. So the numbers at district council are holding up more, but there seemed to be very few of them there on the night. Certainly not enough to win a budget and convince enough people. So it was always going to be futile. And at county council, they've had another defection as well, which is
Yeah, but I think that this is why really, really frustrates me, because it's like, well, in previous years, we have debated opposition amendments for the full budget saying, well, we wouldn't increase council tax as much. Here's our proposal to increase with 4% rather than 4.99 or whatever. And those are the cuts or savings we'll make compared to you to be able to deliver on, let's say, a lower council tax increase or whatever it might be. But now it's so frustrating from just sitting in those meetings being like, okay, it's 2 months till election. Now we're going to do politically convenient small amendments so we can put on our target seat leaflets. And I'm like, if you're going with the idea we wouldn't increase tax so much, for example, then show me a proposal on how, which cuts will you make in, I don't know, in our children's budget, adult social care, highways, whatever it might be, to actually deliver a 0% council tax increase or 2.99 or whatever you want. If you're not going to do that, then all of it is politics, really. And at least, some other district councils who don't increase council tax, at least, they make other types of decisions, and people can be critical of which services they cut or which they choose not to invest in or what they choose to invest in. But at the very least, there's a proposal of well, we're sticking by our decision not to increase, and this is how we'll do it. But just those amendments saying, well, put some more pothole money in my division is not going to really cut it with the argument of we won't increase tax, because at the end of the day, the budget of the county council didn't make any opposition proposal or amendment to the level of tax, for example, although we hear this in the political discourse of, well, increasing council tax shouldn't happen. Okay, then what would you cut then?
I mean, just slightly on the Hunter Post, I think there is an issue that people this is all a bit inside baseball. There aren't that many people interested in local politics, in the sort of the details of budget processes of the district council, and where the Hunts Post is, the sort of modern media landscape. That's not what's going to get them eyes, basically. I mean, I think I like the Hunts Post, and I think they do as. Look, let me give you an example. There was a very sad story. The Hunts Post have got a story about I'll read it. So about a murder in Huntingdon, and as part of that, inquiries continued into the evening and throughout the night. And during these, police were called about the discovery of the body of a man in public toilets at Hinchingbrook Hospital this morning. For instance, the Hunts Post knew about that before my wife, who works at the hospital, so they are, the sort of news reporting, they are good. Similarly, there was a thing, I'm sorry, I know this is all very local, but this is what people were talking about on Facebook yesterday. The George, the pub on the high street, pub and hotel and so on, suddenly, put a thing out saying that was, something, oh, we're closed. They had a gas leak, which is being remedied, and they'll be back open tomorrow. But like the sort of news reporting, I think actually the sort of that kind of very local news reporting, I think they do. The other thing that they put on there, which I actually think is really important, I'm really glad that they do, is just the list of the planning applications that are coming up with, in the district. I actually think that's I mean, on a personal level, I find that useful, but I actually think that's an important thing to have out there, because more people will see it. It's the sort of, covering the politics of what's going on is quite difficult, I think. And a lot of it is, as I say, a little bit inside baseball. Just on the budgets and so on, I'm slightly justifying myself. Not this cycle, but the most recent cycle, I put forward effectively a package of cuts to try and reduce the amount that the town council's precept would go up by. Now, I did the best I could. In retrospect, well, actually, not even in retrospect, I think it was, I said as much pretty quickly, when we started discussing it. There were some things I proposed in there that just weren't workable and had to be, they were never going to happen, and so had to ditch those ideas. But I think it was, you can do it, and this was okay. It's orders of magnitude smaller than a county or a district budget, but this was, me going through and trying to work out what I, made mistakes, but where I thought savings could be made or cuts could be made. And I'm under no illusion that it's actually really easy to say, oh no, the proposal is too high, and I would have been distinctly unpopular if I'd got my way. I'm under no illusions about that. But when you've got a party group, and you can actually split that, in theory, split that work between you, it should be doable. I mean, it's a lot of work to do, but also if you can actually put in a proper alternative budget and get the support of the 151 officer to do it, and also you've got more of the institutional memory, particularly where you've got a party group.
Yeah,
that should be doable. It's a lot of work, and it can be. I get it's like, oh, do we really want to put this, do all of this when no one's going to notice and so on, and it's a lot of work to put together, blah 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 blah. But I don't know. I kind of still, maybe it's tilting at windmills, but I still kind of think it's worthwhile. And if not, that there's a sort of obligation to do it, just so that people can see, well, look, that we do have worked out proposals for how we think it should all look.
Well, I think it's particularly difficult because it depends on like what kind of narratives you lead, and I do get it. Like budgets are also about making headlines and leaflets and so on. But if the narrative you're leading is like we shouldn't increase any more tax at all, it becomes very difficult because you have to make savings, in other places, and then you have to like write what savings you'll make, and then you open yourself at the risk of like being attacked. That like let's say I'm the conservative opposition. I say like I don't want to increase county council tax at all, like 0%, and I'll make some savings from, let's say, the adult social care budget. Then what will come back to me is like the conservatives want to make further cuts into adult social care or further cuts into children's services, and it's a strategically to avoid that kind of like discussion. You're like, well, no, we actually we thought all the budget is bad, and we're going to make those like small amendments on highways, which is like a number one public concern, which will make us look much better than like us having to like justify like a budget that will involve like potentially further savings in the budget to be able to make up that lack of increase in the tax base, for example. So I think, yes, I kind of like I'm in between. I understand the political reasoning of it, but on the other hand, like I do think it's also true that other groups political groups, when in opposition in previous county councils, have tried to have full budget amendments, like regardless of whether it was election year or not. So yeah, each with their own choices, but I kind of understand the strategy behind it.
I mean, there is also the real problem that there's choices at the moment are very, very constrained, basically because there are so many things which are statutory obligations, which eat the amount of money that's available, and you've got the cap on council tax.
Yeah,
and that does make it hard.
Yeah, and basically guidance from Angela Rayner saying that that it's expected that all councils will put up council tax to the max, and they'll look at being punitive against anybody that doesn't, which came up several times in the debate. I mean, it was never a choice. It was never a choice anyway. So we put so county council council tax went up by 4.99%, didn't it? Which is the maximum that district council. Well, it's 3% plus an adult social care supplement, but it amounts to 5%. And at district council, the maximum we can put up the council tax is 3%. Which is below inflation over the last 12 months. But you can either do 3% or £5 on a Band D property is the maximum, which is just slightly a smidgen over 3%, but less than 3.1%. So, obviously we chose 3% because times are hard, and still we're one of the most financially viable districts in Cambridgeshire, but it's still a struggle like everybody else, and it's it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. And I think also the comparisons of some district councils across the UK, increasing it with less than, the maximum, less than the 3%, or, in some cases freezing it like we have in Finland. I also think it's kind of an unfair comparison, because if you look at upper tier authorities that do have, let's say, the adult social care budget, which is a big pressure, for example, then you'll struggle to find. I'm not sure if there's any county council like this year who didn't increase because of those pressures. I think, in some districts the picture might be a bit different, and some are, for some it's very difficult financially, whereas for others they might be able to make those choices depending on how they deal with their budget. But I'm curious to see if any upper tier authority that has responsibility over children and social care did actually not increase council tax this year, because my assumption would be that regardless of political color, and there are some conservative upper tier authorities, they would, because the pressures are experienced across the UK. I mean, the issues we have in school, for example, with the impact on SEND budgets, for example, the pressures on adult social care are felt across the UK. I mean, in Cambridgeshire particularly so, because some of how the funding historically didn't really match our population growth, and how we are still in the bottom 5 or 10% of local authorities, probably 5% in terms of school funding allocation and so on.
Yeah.
But those are problems experienced across the UK, and I would struggle to think if any upper tier authority didn't increase this year. Or last year, for that matter.
I suspect they all did. Not all the district councils do.
No.
I wonder if East Cambs hasn't put up council tax in a decade or something, is something they're really proud of.
Yeah, and I think Finland as well. I'm not sure, but definitely East Cambs.
But not if you can manage it, and you can do that, and you can kind of organise your budget so that you don't do that. Yeah, it'll look really good on leaflets, but of course, it's efficiency. You can increase efficiency, and what's happening in America with the whole Doge thing. Yeah, absolutely. We should look at local government and look at ways we should make cuts. Yeah, I know the way they're doing it over there isn't the best way to do it, but the intention is we've got a huge deficit, national deficit, and we have to cut expenditure. Yeah, and that's what we're doing. Yeah, and I'm sure all councils could do with some of that, but if you don't put your council tax up, I mean, the issue we had is that our previous administration both, well, not so much at county because they had, but a district that hadn't been putting the council tax up by an inflationary amount every year. And then you get to a stage when you really can't afford things and you have to put council tax up. And then you go for a much bigger than, you have to go for a 10% or 17% like Huntington Town Council. And that's so I'm more in favour of making small inflationary increases than making shock increases every decade or so, because that really hurts people and really makes a difference. And it's also worth saying that the HDC precept, although we talk about it a lot, it's not a massive amount of money for most people, is it? I think it's about £6 or £7 a week on a band D, so it's not a huge amount of money. But I mean, that's not minimising the fact that some people don't have much and every penny counts. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, coming back in, there's also the problem with how it's calculated, because it's levied, against the value of your property in 1991,
which doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean, there's the specific calculation, but also the fact that it's entirely done on the basis of how much your property is worth, which I'm not convinced is. I'm not sure what the alternative would be, but it doesn't.
How about a poll tax?
Let's not go there, Stephen. It's too early.
I mean, the other thing that's really frustrates me, and I just I just had to resubmit my data on the council tax because now I don't have the single person discount anymore. And just the thing that thinking, because I have on a leasehold property and I obviously pay the ground rent plus the other fees, plus the thing, and it is. I can understand why people are frustrated when you pay multiple things, for not many services, not overall, because overall, obviously being on county, I understand where my money goes to, and I'm happy with that. But just looking outside your property, the fact that, no recycling bins, although I'm in conversation with my county councillor about this, the fact you feel like you kind of pay twice for things around your house because you have, the newer developments that you have to pay the different, ground rent or other charges for a management company, and then in addition to that, the kind of the same council tax that everyone pays. So I know the national government was looking into some reforms to leasehold as well, but I think that's something that in my case, where I am, is not that bad, but some of the charges on leasehold properties across the UK are very, very high, and it's really the case that you feel like you're paying twice for the same thing, and in some cases it's not for a lot of things, because not every single new development is nice and has maintained green spaces and things that you can justify. You need that additional capacity to take care of the space. Some places you don't even feel like if you're paying for something extra, because you're not in most cases. So I'll be very curious to see what reforms, if any, will be there on those types of housing. Not sure if do you have the same, Stephen, in your area? But
how do you mean? Sorry, say what?
Yeah, the kind of lots of leasehold properties that you obviously pay. Additional.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that's something that I was just looking nationally. They're trying to review it. I think the thing that is really interesting is how there's not a standardized way to do it across the UK. There's really a huge variation from paying, let's say, £200 a year, to paying thousands of pounds per year for things like maintenance fees and ground rent.
I mean, everybody's on the take. It's difficult. Everything's expensive, isn't it?
This was 20 years ago when I lived with my dad in London. The service charge, condominium, call it what you will, for the flat was, I mean, it was well over £1,000 then. This was for a 2-bed flat. It was a lot.
I think it also depends what you get, if you get anything, because I lived before in just rented flats, and you paid a fee because you had every week, I don't know, someone who cleaned the common premises, the stairs and so on. You actually could see there was something, but often in the houses that are leasehold, because their new development is it's the same. You get the same. It's the same, road with potholes. It's the same bin collection. You don't get anything extra. compared to like, I don't know, like a managed block of flats where there might be some other facilities. So yeah, it is really
the block that we lived in had a communal hot water system, and you think at least, we're paying all this money, when there's a problem they'll fix it, and it
didn't happen.
Not quickly. Let's put it like that. Not quickly. And that wasn't much fun. It can get surprisingly cold in the winter. Can I throw a slightly random thing out there, which I haven't mentioned to you before, which is how we deal with some of the negativity in politics generally at the moment. Now, Stephen, this might be slightly triggering for you, because it's going to sound an awful lot like St Neots Market Square. But Huntingdon Firs, which is the business improvement district, have successfully lobbied Cambridgeshire County Council to invest £600,000 in improving, in resurfacing the high street in Huntingdon. This is so look, just for full transparency, I'm the town council's representative to the bid. Apart from that, I think this is a sort of unqualified good news story. Just one thing is, if you're a bit wobbly on your feet, or if you use a scooter or a wheelchair or a rollator or whatever, the high street is actually surprisingly bumpy. And it's not. It actually causes real issues, particularly when there's markets on, whatever. But beyond that, it's investment in the town centre to make it look nicer, which is great, and in the grand scheme of things, £600,000. Look, I mean, it's decades of salary for me, but it's a sort of, in compared to a county council budget, not actually that much money. And it's the sort of, it's Facebook, but the sort of negativity that's come out about it's like, oh, this is ridiculous. Why are you doing this? Everything's fine. And it's sort of, I don't know how much of that is just, it's Facebook. And I was trying to sort of push back a bit and say, actually, no, this is a good thing. And there are a few people coming out and saying, actually, no, this is good. We want this kind of investment and so on. But it's just that sort of enormous wave of negativity, which I have to say really took me aback. Like, this is resurfacing the high street. It'll be,
any potholes, yeah. Oh, this is pedestrianised high street, you mean?
Yeah, it's the pedestrianised high street.
Better. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
it is, but it's that. And okay, I know it's Facebook. You always get people coming out and complaining and whinging, whatever. I wonder if that has an effect. But just generally, people think, oh, so that must be.
It does, and I've experienced a lot of that. Yeah, so certainly about the Market Square. Yeah, certainly about Paxton Bridge, but mainly the Market Square, which is like a £15 million investment, including the Priory Centre and other elements of the high street, into the town centre. Yeah, for years and years and years, everybody claimed in St Neots that HDC hates St Neots. They spend all the money in St Ives and especially in Huntingdon, and we never get anything. And we get, previous administration, not us, get together money from local government, from national government, and SIL money, and put this massive £50 million improvement, which is the biggest improvement that any of our market towns have seen, biggest investment, like, but by a huge amount, yeah. And then everybody's unhappy. We should have spent it on potholes. We should have done this. We should have done that. We should have spent it on the winter fuel allowance for councillors, for elderly people. And it's like, and the issue is that you're right. It is just social media. And when you talk to people face to face, there aren't, some people generally like it. But the problem is, and I find this in debate sometimes, is that the first voices people hear is angry voices on social media, and then they don't put the time and effort in to research things for themselves, and they just accept that as the convenient default opinion, and so it spreads further than social media. So the number of times I've tried to tell people we're not spending £15 million in repaving Market Square because we're completely revamping the Priory Centre, short of a rebuild, but a complete gutting and changing it around. We're bringing the Falcon back up into use, and we're repaving a large portion of the high street as well. But there, people just say £15 million for a patio. Yeah. Another example this week is HTC. Have dug up bits of small sections of Priory Park for wildflower planting, which will look fantastic in the summer. Yeah, most people agree with, and suddenly you get dog walkers. It's a nightmare for dog walkers, like that kind of hyperbole. Like, put your dog on a lead. There's massive areas of grass in Priory Park and in St Neots, but people just get down on councils by default. Yeah, which is an easy thing to do. And it's impossible to defend. And I've tried for my entire political career to be the guy, trying to fight that kind of negative, false news. But in the end, it's just, I find it overwhelming. The Market Square thing is killing me, man. It really is. I think it's brilliant. I think it will be brilliant.
Well, because
I'm sure the hunting thing, it sounds like a fantastic idea to any sensible person. But
it is. I mean, it is. Because I lived in St Neots. I'm the just the Falcon coming back into use is brilliant. The works, okay, I get that nobody likes building works going on, but it really will improve the Market Square, and working on the Priory Centre at the same time is really, really good. I mean, that's they're big improvements for the town. But it's that relentless negativity, and I don't know how you deal with it, because it feels like I don't even know how far it goes, how far it carries, but it feels like it's something we need to find a way of dealing with.
But I keep saying that in St Neots on my patch, there's about, I think it's 35 or 36 elected representatives at all level, up from for the MP and the mayor down to town councillor. So there's 36 of us.
Yeah.
And part of my whole thing as a councillor is I was a social media councillor. I've always been on there, always talking. And now you look, and there's almost nobody left. There's just me, and a couple of other people. Daniela from town council sometimes comes, but most people have retreated. Rob Simonis, who was the mayor before last, he was an exceptional person. He was my deputy mayor twice, one of the people who I trust most in the world, and he was elected as mayor, goes on being all positive, and then within a few weeks just got harangued out of it by the negativity, and that's really, really sad. And even me, I'm struggling these days with social media. So it's tough. It's tough, and I think we don't have a good local press, as we said earlier. Social media was an antidote for that for me, but unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily work, and you have to fight so hard to fight back this tide of negativity that surrounds everything.
But it's also like the expectation, I think, because so obviously with the all the councillors have the contact details and we have our council emails. So all my council emails, it's not true for every single councillor, but I do and often stay up until 3 a.m. some nights to finish all my emails, after work and so on. And everyone will get a response on the email. To be honest, on social media, especially once you have a post on a local group, let's say I post an update about which footpaths will be resurfaced in the next year because it was published on a group, and you have tons of comments, including people who raise good points about what about this area, will this be in the next round and so on. And it's very useful for me, that information, because I can take a note and know what to advocate for next time and what should we prioritize next time. But then you get lots of the comments around oh, why don't you do this instead or that, and then you get tagged oh, why does the council no reply, or no word from the councillor, or very kind of personal comments. To be honest, I'm saying this, maybe people are watching, if I didn't respond to a comment and so on, it's because this is not my full-time job to be on social media and respond to comments. There's a limit to what I can do. Most of my engagement on social media is when I'm on the commute to work in London, or after my official time is prioritized, of course, attending council meetings, reading the papers, responding to my actual email, on especially with casework of the people in the area I represent, and is not in the job description to respond to every single comment. And I think that's what Stephen was saying, most councillors I think are not on social media because it adds an additional amount of time which most people don't have. And especially once you get into the more active you are, the more comments you get, and the more you feel you have to respond, and the more you're the more toxic it can become as well, and it's not for everyone. So like, for example, for me, like once you put a post and you get 100 comments on like a post saying I report the pothole in the local area, you can, if you want to like stay up all night and respond and engage with every single comment, but most people will be like no. And if there's like casework from the particular area, that's why we have different divisions from there I represent, then yes, I think all councillors should respond to their residents casework. But yeah, I got, for example, like emails about like, what about this road in I don't know, Sultry? Like obviously that's not my area. I can say like, yes, I could obviously bring it to the attention of or like here's your local county councillor and how to contact them, or this road in Cottenham. But the more active you are, the more you also open yourself to doing other people's casework, which really shouldn't be the case. I mean, of course, if you have the time and capacity, you can say, yes, this is your county councillor, speak to them, or here is how to report. I usually like send the link as well, like here's how to report this issue to the county council, and by the way, you're in Waterbeach, and this is your county councillor in Waterbeach, for example. But yeah, you kind of like feel pressure to respond to everything, and that's not the role that you should have. And that's why probably lots of people don't want to engage, because you'll get a lot more. That's my opinion.
And I guess with unitaries, there's going to be fewer of us,
Yeah.
far fewer of us for the same amount of population. Yeah, and so that struggle is going to be even more as well.
My hope with that is that you'll get a better caliber of councillor, so that you'll have more people who are more engaged. Because unfortunately there are, and this is true of all sides, there are some councillors who are well intentioned but aren't great. There are some councillors who just don't do a tap, and I'm maybe this is me being crushingly naive, but my hope is that we'll get we will get better councillors. If you're finding less across the whole patch.
I'm not convinced about that. I mean, I think I think there's definitely an increase in the caliber of people, not in general, as general trend, as you go up the rungs. And so intellectually there's people at county council who I really respect, and really clever people who would succeed in any element. But as you go down the ladder, then it's at town council there are people who don't read the papers, even at district council. So there's definitely an increase. There's definitely an increase in caliber. But the trouble is the way we select people, through democracy, when nobody's engaged with it, isn't a very good way of picking those people up, is it? Because all the leaflets are templated mostly these days. Political parties struggle to fill all the seats, and people who get elected are not the people who are the best candidates. It's not really a meritocracy, is it? There's other confounding factors, and the other thing is like, if you really want to get a better caliber of people, you have to make it financially worthwhile for people to step away from their jobs. And so county council allowance is about 11 grand. I think the district council allowance is about 6 grand or more as you go up. I mean, you get extra allowances, but basic allowances. But they're talking about we nobody's talking about this, but if you look at other unitary authorities, they pay about 14 grand for basically doing essentially more work, because you so I'm a double hat, so you could say that basically I cover most of the responsibilities of a new unitary council. I get that, but there'll be far fewer of us, and dealing with bigger population areas in our districts or wards or whatever. And you just and you do it without any support at all. People complaining about MPs, hiring people and spending money in their offices. It's like, you don't have any support. You don't have anybody to handle your diary or deal with your emails. You do it all yourself. And like, for 14 grand a year, I think that being a unitary councillor is looking close to a full-time job. And it's not financially viable to anybody who hasn't got other means, who's not independently rich or retired. Anybody's of working age, including me, and I've got a decent job, is, can I afford to do that? And from my holiday and not concentrating on my job, I think it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And so there's the areas like the more people you have who like for whatever reason like can't like I don't know like respond to their emails properly or like take up casework, the more
I,
it falls on others as well, especially when you have like multiple member work. Let's say
but
if you have like 3-member word and like you're the only person who does any work in
yeah,
there
no, but
compared to your
I was
colleagues,
going to
it's
say that
really
about
like
my
the reason it's
family.
a 2-member or 3-member word so you can share the work, not so you do the work yourself.
It's almost impossible to keep on top of the emails, even at the moment. Is that especially when like if you go some weeks I go to meetings 4 evenings a week, and sometimes have to take time off work in the daytime to go to meetings. Yeah, so to come out of all those meetings absolutely exhausted, not having seen my family, and get home and see another 5 emails of important casework, is that you try your best, but the sheer volume of emails will just kill you in the end. At the end of a 4-year term. Yeah, I'm very, very tired of it all.
Yeah, I mean the issue as well is that like unlike like and obviously like having worked with MPs and so on in the past, like you have a case management system, right? So like you can easily see, okay, what are the urgent ones I need to do today? What are the ones that I have to prioritize? And what are, for example, I don't know, like someone asking your opinion about a certain policy, which you can leave later on and have more time to think about it, right? Like there's no such thing. Like I basically have like the emails, so like I have my own system of putting it in different folders and being like to follow up, to respond, and so on. But it's actually, if you have a large amount of emails without obviously like any stuff and so on, like obviously it's up to you and how organized you are, which for a lot of people is not what they can do effectively. And like even I struggle, and I do like kind of admin and management in my my day job as well. But yeah, it is very difficult because it's not like I log in and I'm like, oh, this has to be responded today, or this is urgent and this is not, or like you have to attend this today. And like it it enables to prioritize. Like I kind of like log in, it's like, okay, 149 unresponded emails, and I have to go you go through all of them, being like, okay, this is casework, this is newsletter, this is whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, if I was retired, like I would definitely be able, like every single day, to log in the morning in my email to keep on top of the inbox. But yeah, when you're like working on other jobs as well, it kind of builds up. So that's why for anyone who didn't get the response from me like very quickly, like I always say, like I really do apologize. I had a very busy, week at work. For example, this week I was at a conference and so on, and 2 days the email was just out because I was attending like a conference for work. So yes, I mean, I also like feel like very bad sometimes because people like do expect like an immediate reply, and I have to say, like, I'm really sorry. It did take me like 3 or 4 days to look into this because first of all I had to get to the bottom of the email pile where this was at, and then I had to get the relevant information from the officer to be able to give you an actual response, rather than just saying, hey, I received your email, thank you very much, I don't know the answer to this, because I try to actually give an answer to people, even if it's satisfactory or not.
It's not just emails, though, is it? It's emails, it's Facebook messages, it's WhatsApps, it's phone calls, right. It's voicemails, it's the people across you in the street. Yeah, and it's like, so the channels of communication, and and I pride myself at being available. I really do. But like, I've had stuff where people have sent me a message about something about Market Square on a Thursday night, and it's been late. I haven't responded, gone to work next day, and they're complaining because I haven't heard back. And like that kind of entitlement expectation is like, what do you want me to do, man? I can't stay up all night answering your messages that you've sent me at 11 o'clock at night. I can't do that. So, yeah.
Well, speaking about work, it's payroll day today, so unfortunately, I do need to leave.
I need to get off to a meeting in Rushton as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Can I just very, very quickly at the end, is one of my other hats, although I've taken a lot of hats off this last week, is chair of Hunt Shop Mobility, which unfortunately has been reported is closing.
Is it?
Yeah, we're closing. Basically we can't make the sums add up because not enough people are using us. In a way, that's a good thing. More people can afford their own scooters and so on, which is great. I just wanted to sort of briefly say thanks to everybody who's, lots of people have been in touch who have been very sort of very, very kind, because it's been a difficult week, but particularly to Celia, who's our manager, without whom we wouldn't exist. The other trustees, and particularly the volunteers who have kept us going since well before I joined. The Hunt Shop Mobility. So it's it's a shame. But the other thing, just because people knock councils a lot. We've known this has been coming for we've been talking about this for some time, and the staff and also the councillors I've spoken to at the district council, the county council, and indeed the combined authority have been great in trying to work constructively with us to sort of basically see if there's revenue funding out there to keep us going. We were actually doing all right on grant funding, but it's the revenue funding that was the issue. And I just wanted to sort of to an extent publicly say, thank you to them. We've got lots of other people have supported us over the years. The Hunts Post has been great. Huntingdon Community Radio and so on. But yeah,
that's really sad news. I'm not jealous about many things about Huntingdon as a St Neots resident, but one of the things I was jealous of, and I always hoped would spread down the A1, is your shop mobility scheme. It's fantastic, and something it's very noticeable when you're in Huntingdon to see how many people use it as well. And so I think that's really, really sad and devastating news.
The thing is, a lot of it now is so. I know which all of our scooters are, and they've all got our branding on, and so you increasingly the scooters people are using are privately owned ones.
The cost of technology has probably gone down, hasn't it? And well, I'd assume so. And maybe some people have bought their own after trying some of your mobility scooters, and maybe that's a success.
Yeah, definitely. But I just want to say, wanted a sort of, say, because I suspect there's quite a lot of people who watch this who maybe work for the different councils, and I just wanted to say, thank you. I do appreciate all the help you've given us. This is the thing. People in local, you go for a council, you expect a certain amount of abuse. If you're just someone working for the council, you really don't. But to see that people will you can just get in touch as a small charity saying, look, can you give us some advice? Is there anything you can do? And they will. Obviously, Hunts Forum as well has been, even before now, has just been fabulous. So.
Yeah, that's true. The communities teams as well, are really, really great, especially supporting smaller organizations. But I think it is a challenge. It's very sad news, but it's a challenge across the country, really, in terms of the sustainability of smaller organizations, because the funding models over time have changed, and having a small not-for-profit myself, it is so difficult to have any kind of long-term planning in stuff at all, because a lot of it is very project based, very specific for doing events or buying certain equipment and so on, rather than having an admin function. Funding a full-time organizer or admin function is probably the most difficult thing I've ever bid for in terms of funding. So it's very
really
challenging.
We used to be hiring out 100 scooters a month. So, and Wednesdays and Saturdays we are busiest days. Januaries are always bad for us because it's kipper season and it's cold and it's miserable. We had a couple of days where literally nobody was coming in. So it's decline in demand, which is a good thing because it means people hopefully have got their own kit. But yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to add that at the end.
Yeah. On that note, we'll see you all again next Friday, when hopefully I'll be less rushed with the payroll day. And yes, have a good weekend and the rest of the weekend.
Yep. All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.